Sometimes the truth finds you in the most unexpected places. Sometimes it arrives wrapped in concern, delivered by a stranger who sees what you have been refusing to see for years. This is the story of a routine appointment that became the moment everything changed. A moment when a closed door, a serious look, and words spoken with urgency shattered the illusion of a perfect marriage. What would you do if someone you barely knew told you that your life was in danger? What would you do if that person showed you proof that the man sleeping next to you every night was not who you thought he was? This is not just a story about discovery. This is a story about survival, courage, and the strength we find when we finally decide to save ourselves. Before we begin this story, do not forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you are listening to this story from. We will post new stories every day. I never thought a simple medical appointment could change my entire life. It was a gray Tuesday morning in Portland, one of those days when the rain falls softly and the sky seems to blend with the buildings. I had scheduled the appointment 3 weeks earlier, just a routine checkup, nothing special. I had been feeling more tired than usual, some headaches, difficulty sleeping. I thought it was stress from work, or maybe I needed to adjust my vitamins. The clinic was in the northwest area of the city, in a modern building with large glass windows that reflected the cloudy sky. I arrived 15 minutes early, as I always did. I hated being late. I sat in the waiting room, a space decorated in neutral tones with abstract paintings on the walls and soft music playing in the background. There were 3 other people waiting: an elderly man reading a newspaper, a young woman staring at her phone, and a mother with a child who was drawing in a coloring book. I looked at my phone. 2 messages from my husband, David. The first said he would be working late again. The second was a heart emoji. I smiled automatically, but something inside me felt hollow. David had been working late a lot lately. His architecture firm had won a big contractee, and he said he needed to be present for every detail. I understood. I always understood. My name was called. Rebecca Sullivan. I stood up and followed the nurse down a long hallway with white walls and the smell of disinfectant that all medical offices have. She took my blood pressure, asked routine questions about my medical history, and then left me alone in the examination room. I sat on the paper-covered table, listening to the sound of my own breathing and the muffled voices coming from other rooms. The door opened, and Dr. Emily Harrison walked in. She was a woman in her early 50s, with short gray hair and eyes that seemed to see more than what was on the surface. She wore dark green scrubs and a stethoscope around her neck. I had seen her once before, about 2 years ago, for a similar checkup. She had been professional and efficient. Nothing memorable. "Good morning, Rebecca," she said, closing the door behind her. "How have you been feeling?" I described my symptoms: the fatigue, the headaches, the insomnia. She listened carefully, taking notes on her tablet. She asked me about my diet, my exercise routine, my stress levels at work. I answered everything honestly. I worked as a financial consultant for a medium-sized company downtown. The job was demanding but stable. I liked it most days. "And how are things at home?" she asked, looking up from her tablet. "How is your family life?" The question caught me off guard. It seemed too personal for a routine physical, but I answered anyway. "It is fine. My husband works a lot, but we manage. We have been married for 12 years. She nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. "Do you have children?" "No. We talked about it years ago, but it never happened. We are okay with that." She continued the physical examination. She checked my reflexes, looked in my ears and throat, listened to my heart and lungs. Everything seemed normal. Then she asked me to lie down so she could check my abdomen. As she pressed gently on different areas, she asked more questions. "Have you noticed any unusual bruising recently?" I frowned. "No, not really." "Why?" "Just checking," she said. "Sometimes fatigue and headaches can be related to other issues. Have you had any falls or accidents?" "No, nothing like that." She helped me sit up and stepped back, crossing her arms. "Rebecca, I need to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. Do you feel safe at home?" The question hit me like cold water. "What? Of course I do. Why would you ask that?" "Because I am concerned," she said quietly. "Some of your symptoms, combined with certain Patterns I am noticing suggest chronic stress, the kind that comes from living in a state of constant tension. I laughed nervously. Dr. Harrison, I appreciate your concern, but I am just tired. My job is stressful, that is all. She did not smile. She walked over to the door and, to my surprise, locked it. Then she came back and pulled a chair close to where I was sitting. Her face was serious, almost grave. Rebecca, what I am about to tell you stays between us. Patient confidentiality protects this conversation, but I need you to listen carefully. My heart started beating faster. What is going on? 3 months ago, I treated a patient who came in with similar symptoms to yours. Fatigue, headaches, anxiety. During our conversation, she mentioned her husband. She said his name was David Sullivan. She said he was an architect, worked long hours, seemed like the perfect husband. The room seemed to tilt. I felt my hands go cold. What are you talking about? She continued, her voice steady but urgent. That woman told me things about her relationship with David Sullivan that deeply concerned me. She described patterns of control, manipulation, and escalating behavior that made me fear for her safety. I encouraged her to seek help, to consider leaving. She said she would think about it. I could barely breathe. This does not make sense. David is my husband. We have been together for 12 years. He is not violent. He is not controlling. You must be mistaken. Dr. Harrison reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a folder. She opened it carefully, blocking my view of most of the contents. But she showed me one page. It was a medical report with a name I did not recognize. Jennifer Hayes. The date was from 4 months ago. This woman came to see me multiple times. On her last visit, she had bruises on her arms that she tried to hide. She finally admitted that David had become physically aggressive. She said she was planning to leave him, but she was scared. My voice came out as a whisper. Where is she now? Dr. Harrison's expression darkened. She disappeared 3 months ago. Her family filed a missing person report. The police investigated briefly but found nothing. She lived alone, no close family nearby. Eventually, the case went cold. I stood up abruptly, feeling dizzy. This is insane. You are talking about my husband. David would never hurt anyone. And how do you even know it is the same person? Sullivan is not an uncommon name. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through something. Then she turned the screen toward me. It was a photo, slightly blurry, taken at what looked like a restaurant. A man and a woman sitting together, smiling. The man was David. There was no question about it. Same dark hair, same strong jawline, same smile I had seen 1,000 times. The woman was blonde, pretty, younger than me. I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. When was this taken? About 5 months ago, according to the timestamp. A mutual acquaintance sent it to Jennifer. When she started asking questions about David's past, she showed it to me during one of our sessions because she wanted to understand who she was really involved with. I grabbed the edge of the examination table to steady myself. You are saying David was seeing this woman while he was married to me. I cannot confirm the exact nature of their relationship, but Jennifer believed they were in a committed relationship. She had no idea he was married. When she found out, she confronted him. That is when things started to change. That is when she became afraid. My mind was racing. I thought about the late nights David had been working, the business trips, the times he said he was meeting clients. How many of those were lies? Dr. Harrison leaned forward. Rebecca, I need you to understand something. I am telling you this because I believe you are in danger. Whatever happened to Jennifer, whether she left on her own or something worse occurred, the fact remains that your husband was involved with her, that she was afraid of him, and that she vanished. You need to take this seriously. I felt tears burning in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Why are you telling me this? Why not go to the police? I did. After Jennifer disappeared, I reported my concerns, but without concrete evidence, without Jennifer herself to make a statement, there was nothing they could do. They talked to David. He denied everything, said he barely knew her, that she was a client who became obsessed with him. He was very convincing. Of course he was. David was always convincing. He could charm anyone, talk his way out of anything. It was one of the things I had loved about him once. What do you want me to do? I asked, my voice breaking. I want you to be careful. I want you to start paying attention to things you might have been ignoring. And I want you to consider that the man you are living with might not be who you think he is." She handed me a card with a phone number written on it. "This is a shelter for women who need help leaving dangerous situations. They are discreet, professional, and they can help you create a safety plan, even if you do not think you need it now. Please keep this number." I took the card with shaking hands and slipped it into my purse. I felt numb, disconnected from reality. This morning I had woken up thinking I was coming in for a simple checkup. Now I was being told that my husband might be dangerous, that he might have been involved with another woman who was now missing. Dr. Harrison stood up and unlocked the door. "I am going to order some blood tests for you, just to rule out any physical causes for your symptoms. But Rebecca, please promise me you will think about what I have said. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is." I nodded, unable to speak. She opened the door and her professional demeanor returned instantly. "We will have your results in a few days. Take care of yourself, Rebecca." I walked out of that clinic in a daze. The rain had stopped, but the sky was still gray. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, just staring at nothing. My phone buzzed. Another message from David. "Thinking of you. Hope your appointment went well." I stared at those words. They looked so normal, so loving, but now they felt like a mask. What was hiding underneath? I drove home slowly, my mind replaying everything Dr. Harrison had told me. I thought about Jennifer Hayes, a woman I had never met, whose life had somehow intersected with mine in the worst possible way. A woman who was now gone. When I pulled into our driveway, I sat for a moment looking at the house David and I had bought 8 years ago. A beautiful craftsman-style home with a blue door and a garden I had planted myself. It had always felt like a safe place. Now it felt like a trap. I walked inside, and the silence was deafening. Everything looked the same. The photos on the wall, the furniture we had chosen together, the books on the shelves. But I saw it all differently now. Every object seemed to hold a secret. I went upstairs to our bedroom and stood in the doorway. The bed was neatly made. David's side of the closet was organized perfectly. He was meticulous about everything. Suddenly, that quality that I had once admired seemed sinister. I walked to his closet and started looking through his things. I did not know what I was searching for. Evidence? Proof that Dr. Harrison was wrong, or proof that she was right? I found nothing unusual. Just clothes, shoes, boxes of old receipts. I was about to give up when I noticed a small locked box on the top shelf, pushed far back. I had never seen it before. I pulled it down and tried to open it. Locked. I searched for a key but found nothing. My heart was pounding. What was in this box? Why? Did David need to lock something away? I heard a car in the driveway. David was home early. I quickly put the box back exactly where I had found it and rushed downstairs, trying to look normal. When David walked through the door, he smiled at me like he always did. But for the first time in 12 years, I looked at my husband and felt afraid. "Hey, you are home early," David said, setting his briefcase down by the door. He walked over and kissed my cheek. His lips felt cold. "How did the appointment go?" I forced a smile, trying to keep my voice steady. "It was fine. Just routine tests. The doctor said I might be low on some vitamins. Nothing serious." "That is good." He loosened his tie and headed to the kitchen. I followed him, watching his every movement as if seeing him for the first time. He opened the refrigerator and pulled out a bottle of water. "Want something?" "To drink." "No, thank you." I leaned against the counter, my hands gripping the edge. "You said you would be working late. What happened?" He shrugged. "The client meeting got postponed. I figured I would come home and surprise you. Maybe we could order dinner, watch a movie, have a quiet evening together. We have not done that in a while." His words sounded caring, normal, but all I could think about was the photo Dr. Harrison had shown me. David sitting in a restaurant with another woman, smiling, looking relaxed, looking like a man who was not married. "That sounds nice," I said, but my voice felt hollow. David studied my face. "Are you sure you are okay? You seem tense." "Just tired. The appointment wore me out more than I expected." He nodded and moved closer, putting his hand on my shoulder. "You work too hard. You should take some time off. Relax a little." His touch made my skin crawl, but I forced myself not to pull away. "Maybe you are right. That evening was torture. We ordered Chinese food and sat on the couch watching a movie I could not focus on. David seemed perfectly content, occasionally making comments about the plot or laughing at jokes. I responded automatically, my mind elsewhere. I kept thinking about how to approach this. Should I confront him directly? Should I investigate? On my own first. Should I call that number Dr. Harrison gave me? Every option felt dangerous. When we went to bed that night, David fell asleep quickly, his breathing deep and regular. I lay awake in the darkness, listening to the sound of rain starting again outside. I turned my head to look at him. In sleep, his face looked peaceful, innocent. But Dr. Harrison's words kept echoing in my mind. The man you are living with might not be who you think he is. I thought back to how David and I had met. It was 12 years ago, at a charity event downtown. I had just started my job as a financial consultant, and I was there representing my company. David was there with colleagues from his architecture firm. He approached me at the bar, complimented my dress, made me laugh. He was charming, confident, attentive. Within 3 months, we were inseparable. Within about a year, we were married. The early years were good. We traveled together, built our careers, bought this house. David was always supportive of my work, always interested in my day. He remembered small details, brought me flowers for no reason, planned surprises. Friends said we were the perfect couple. But when did things start to change? I tried to remember. Maybe around 5 years ago, David started working longer hours. He became more particular about how the house should look, how I should dress for events, who I should spend time with. At first, I thought he was just stressed about work. He had been promoted to senior partner at his firm, and the pressure was intense. Then, there were the small incidents. Once, I went out for dinner with colleagues from work without telling him first. When I came home, he was furious. He said I should have asked, that he had been worried, that it was disrespectful. I apologized, even though part of me felt his reaction was excessive. Another time, I wanted to take a weekend trip to visit my sister in Seattle. David said he needed me home because he had an important client dinner and wanted me there. I canceled my trip. My sister was hurt, but I told her David needed my support. Gradually, I stopped making plans without checking with him first. I stopped seeing certain friends he did not approve of. I started dressing the way he preferred. It happened so slowly that I did not notice I was changing. I just thought I was being a good wife, being supportive, being understanding. Now, lying in the darkness, I wondered if those were warning signs I had ignored. The next morning, David left early for work. As soon as his car pulled out of the driveway, I got up and went straight to his closet. I pulled down the locked box again and examined it more carefully. It was made of dark wood, about the size of a shoebox, with a small brass lock. I needed to open it. I searched the entire bedroom for a key but found nothing. Then I remembered David kept a collection of old keys in his desk drawer in the home office. I went downstairs and started trying them one by one. The 7th key worked. My hands were shaking as I lifted the lid. Inside were papers. I pulled them out carefully and spread them on the desk. There were bank statements from an account I did not know existed, large withdrawals over the past 2 years, always in cash, thousands of dollars, sometimes multiple times a month. There were also receipts, hotels in Seattle, Vancouver, San Francisco, dates when David had told me he was working late or traveling for business meetings, restaurants I had never been to, jewelry stores, flower shops, and then I found the photographs. They were at the bottom of the box, in a small envelope. I pulled them out with trembling fingers. The first few were of Jennifer Hayes, the woman from Dr. Harrison's photo. She was laughing in some, serious in others. In one, she was wearing a necklace that looked expensive. In another, she was standing in front of a house I did not recognize. But there were other photos too. Other women. At least 4 different women, maybe more. Some photos looked recent. Others were older. The colors slightly faded. I felt sick. I sat down heavily in David's office chair, staring at the evidence spread across his desk. My husband had not just been unfaithful. He had been systematically lying to me for years, possibly seeing multiple women, spending money I did not know about. But the worst part was what I did not find. There were no recent photos of any of these women. The most recent one of Jennifer was dated 8 months ago. Where were they now? Where was Jennifer? I took out my phone and photographed everything. Every document, every receipt, every picture. Then I carefully put everything back exactly as I had found it and locked the box. I spent the rest of the day in a state of shock, trying to process what I had discovered. I called in sick to work, something I rarely did. I could not face my colleagues, could not pretend everything was normal. Around noon, I received a call from an unknown number. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. Hello, Rebecca Sullivan? A woman's voice, professional and cautious. Yes. Who is this? My name is Detective Sarah Chen with the Portland Police Department. I was wondering if you might have time to answer a few questions. My heart stopped. Questions about what? There was a pause. It is regarding a missing person case. Jennifer Hayes. Your husband's name came up during our investigation, and I understand you might have some information that could help us. I sat down, feeling lightheaded. How did you get my number? Dr. Emily Harrison contacted us. She said she had spoken with you and believed you might be willing to cooperate. I want to assure you that anything you tell me will be handled with complete discretion. I thought about the photos upstairs, the evidence in David's locked box. I thought about Jennifer Hayes, missing for 3 months. I thought about the other women in those photographs. Can we meet somewhere private? I asked quietly. Not at my house. Of course. There is a coffee shop on Northwest 23rd Avenue, near the bookstore. Do you know it? Yes. Can you meet me there in an hour? I will be there. I hung up and sat staring at my phone. This was real. This was actually happening. The police were investigating David. A woman was missing, and I was married to the man at the center of it all. I arrived at the coffee shop early and chose a table in the back corner. Detective Chen arrived exactly on time. She was in her late 30s, with dark hair, pulled back in a ponytail and sharp, observant eyes. She wore plain clothes, jeans and a blazer. Nothing that screamed police detective. Thank you for meeting with me, she said, sitting down across from me. I know this must be difficult. I do not know what I can tell you, I said carefully. I did not even know Jennifer Hayes existed until yesterday. I understand, but sometimes spouses notice things without realizing their significance. I had small changes in behavior, unexplained absences, financial irregularities. I thought about the locked box, the secret bank account, all those receipts. I have noticed some things. I told her about finding the box, about the photos and documents. Her expression remained neutral, but I could see the intensity in her eyes as she took notes. Would you be willing to provide copies of those photographs and documents? She asked. Yes. I already took pictures with my phone. I can send them to you. That would be very helpful. She leaned back in her chair, studying me. Rebecca, I need to ask you something directly. Do you feel safe living with your husband right now? The question hung in the air between us. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to believe that David, despite everything, would never hurt me. But the truth was, I did not know anymore. I am not sure. I admitted. Has he ever been physically aggressive with you? No, never. He has been controlling sometimes, but never violent. Controlling how? I told her about the gradual changes, the way David had slowly isolated me from friends and family, the way he monitored my schedule, the way he reacted when I did things without consulting him first. As I spoke, I realized how bad it sounded. Those are classic warning signs. Detective Chen said gently, and in cases like Jennifer's, escalation is common. A partner who starts with emotional control often moves to physical control. What do you think happened to Jennifer? Honestly, I think she was planning to leave him, and he could not let that happen. We found evidence that she withdrew money from her savings account the week before she disappeared. She told a coworker she was going away for a while, and then she vanished. Do you think David did something to her? Detective Chen chose her words carefully. I think your husband has a pattern of behavior that concerns me deeply. Jennifer is not the first woman connected to David Sullivan who has disappeared or left town suddenly. 3 years ago, another woman filed a restraining order against him, but dropped it a week later and moved out of state. 5 years ago, a woman he dated briefly was found injured in her apartment. She claimed it was an accident, refused to press charges. I felt cold all over. Why was he never arrested? Because these women protected him. They were afraid, or he convinced them, or they just wanted to escape. And David is smart. He is careful. He knows how to appear innocent, how to explain things away. The coffee in front of me had gone cold. I wrapped my hands around the cup anyway, needing something to hold onto. What should I do? I asked. First, do not let him know you found that box or that you are talking to me. Act normal. Second, start making preparations to leave. Open a bank account he does not know about. Copy important documents. Pack a bag and leave it somewhere he will not find it. And third, keep that phone number Dr. Harrison gave you. If things escalate, if you feel threatened in any way, use it. You want me to stay in the house with him, knowing all this? For now, yes. If he suspects you know something, he might react unpredictably. We need time to build a case. But the moment you feel unsafe, you leave. No hesitation. A pause for reflection. How long have you been investigating him? I asked. Since Jennifer was reported missing. But the more we dig, the more we find. David Sullivan is very good at hiding who he really is. I left that coffee shop feeling like I was living in a nightmare. The man I had married, the man I had shared my life with for 12 years, was a stranger, worse than a stranger, a dangerous person who had hurt people before. When I got home, I started following Detective Chen's advice. I opened a new bank account online using my work email address. I gathered copies of our financial documents, my birth certificate, passport, and medical records. I packed a small bag with clothes and essentials and hid it in the trunk of my car under the spare tire. Then I tried to act normal when David came home that evening. How was your day? He asked, kissing me on the cheek again. Quiet. I just rested. I lied. How was yours? Busy. We are finalizing plans for a new building downtown. It is going to be beautiful. He showed me sketches on his tablet, explaining the design with enthusiasm. I watched him talk, animated and passionate about his work, and I wondered how this man and the man Detective Chen described could be the same person. That night, as we were getting ready for bed, David surprised me. He came up behind me as I was brushing my teeth and wrapped his arms around my waist. I have been thinking, he said, meeting my eyes in the mirror. Maybe we should take a trip, just the two of us. Get away from work for reconnect. My blood ran cold. A trip. Alone with him. Away from anyone who could help me. That sounds nice. I managed to say, when were you thinking? Next weekend, maybe. I could book something tomorrow. Somewhere remote. Peaceful. Just us. I rinsed my mouth, trying to keep my hands from shaking. Let me check my work calendar first. I have some deadlines coming up. His arms tightened slightly around me. You work too much. Your health is more important. I know. I just need to make sure I can take the time off. He released me and walked to bed. I stood at the sink, staring at my reflection. The woman looking back at me appeared terrified. A pause to let the person engage. As I climbed into bed next to David that night, I made a decision. I could not keep living like this, pretending everything was fine while planning my escape. I needed to be smarter, faster. Tomorrow, I would call Detective Chen and tell her about David's trip suggestion. Tomorrow, I would start putting a real plan in place. And tomorrow, I would begin finding my way out of this nightmare. But tonight, I lay in the darkness next to a man who might have destroyed other women's lives, and I prayed I would not become the next one to disappear. A pause in the story to ask you, are you enjoying this account so far? Do not forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We will post new stories every day. Thank you. Let us continue. The next morning, I waited until David left for work before calling Detective Chen. My hands were still shaking as I dialed her number. Rebecca. Her voice was alert, concerned. Is everything okay? He wants to take me on a trip. Next weekend. Somewhere remote. I could hear the panic in my own voice. He has never suggested anything like this before, not with such urgency. There was a pause on the other end. Where does he want to go? He said he would book it today. Somewhere peaceful, away from everything. Those were his exact words. Listen to me carefully. Detective Chen's tone was serious. Do not go on that trip. I do not care what excuse you have to make. Work emergency, family crisis, sudden illness, whatever it takes. But do not get in a car alone with him and leave the city. You think he would hurt me. I think he suspects something. Maybe he sensed a change in your behavior. Or maybe he is just being cautious. Either way, Isolating you in a remote location is a huge red flag. We have seen this pattern before. What should I do? Can you go stay with family? Friends? Anyone he would not immediately think to look for you? I thought about my sister in Seattle, but David knew her address. My parents had moved to Arizona 3 years ago. I had a few close friends, but David had systematically distanced me from most of them over the years. I have a college friend in Eugene. David barely knows her. We lost touch for a while, but we reconnected on social media recently. Perfect. Call her today. Tell her you need a place to stay for a few days, but do not tell her why yet. The less people know, the safer everyone is. When should I leave? Soon, but not so suddenly that it seems suspicious. Maybe tell David you need to visit this friend this weekend instead of going on the trip with him. Say she is going through something difficult and needs you. What if he does not accept that? Then you leave anyway. Rebecca, I need you to understand something. Based on what we have uncovered about your husband, I believe you are in real danger. Jennifer Hayes is still missing. The other women in his past all have stories of escalating control and fear. You need to protect yourself. After I hung up with Detective Chen, I sat on the couch trying to calm my racing heart. I looked around the living room, at the life David and I had built together, the artwork we had chosen, the furniture, the carefully arranged books. Everything looked so normal, so safe, but it was all a lie. I called my friend Monica in Eugene. We had been roommates in college, and though we had drifted apart over the years, we still exchanged messages occasionally. She was a therapist now, married with 2 young children. Rebecca. She sounded genuinely happy to hear from me. It has been forever. How are you? I am okay. Listen, I know this is sudden, but I need to ask you something. Would it be possible for me to come stay with you for a few days? Maybe this weekend? There was a brief pause. Of course. Is everything all right? I will explain when I see you. I just need to get away for a bit. Say no more. You are always welcome here. The kids will be excited to see their Aunt Rebecca. I felt tears welling up at her kindness. Thank you, Monica. You have no idea how much this means to me. After securing a place to go, I spent the day preparing. I gathered more documents, including old photographs of David and me from happier times. Detective Chen had said they might need evidence of the relationship timeline. I also wrote down everything I could remember about Jennifer Hayes from what Dr. Harrison had told me. Dates and details that might help the investigation. Around 3 in the afternoon, David called. His voice was cheerful, excited. Hey, I found the perfect place for our trip. A cabin near Mount Hood. Complete privacy. Amazing views. No cell service. We could really disconnect and focus on each other. No cell service. The words made my stomach drop. He wanted me somewhere I could not call for help. That sounds beautiful, I said, forcing enthusiasm into my voice. But actually, something came up. My friend Monica in Eugene. You remember her from college? She is going through a really difficult time and asked if I could come visit this weekend. I told her I would. The silence on the other end of the line stretched too long. You have not seen Monica in years. David's voice had changed, become colder, and you are telling me this now, after I already made plans for us. I know, and I am sorry, but she really needs me right now. It is just a few days. We can take our trip another time. What is so difficult that she suddenly needs you this weekend specifically? I had prepared for this question. She is having problems in her marriage. She is really struggling and does not have anyone else to talk to. You know how important it is to be there for friends when they need you. Another long pause. Fine. Go to Eugene. But I am disappointed, Rebecca. I thought reconnecting with me was important to you too. It is. I promise we will plan something soon. When I hung up, my hands were trembling. He had agreed, but something in his voice had frightened me. It was not anger exactly. It was something colder, more calculated. That evening, David came home later than usual. When he walked in, he did not kiss me or ask about my day. He just went straight to his office and closed the door. I could hear him on the phone, his voice low and intense, but I could not make out the words. I made dinner, pasta, with vegetables, one of his favorite meals. When I called him to eat, he came out, but barely looked at me. We ate in uncomfortable silence. When are you leaving for Eugene? He finally asked. Friday afternoon. I will come back Sunday evening. He nodded slowly, cutting his pasta with precise movements. I hope Monica appreciates you dropping everything for her. She would do the same for me. Would she? He looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes that made my blood run cold. It was not anger or hurt. It was assessment. He was studying me like I was a problem he needed to solve. That night, I barely slept. Every sound in the house seemed amplified. The creaking of floorboards, the wind against the windows, David's breathing next to me. I kept thinking about Jennifer Hayes, about the other women in those photographs. Where were they now? What had David done? At 2 a.m, I heard David get up. I kept my eyes closed, pretending to sleep. I heard him walk downstairs, heard the sound of his office door opening and closing. What was he doing down there in the middle of the night? After about 20 minutes, he came back to bed. I waited until his breathing became regular again. Then I carefully slid out from under the covers. I crept downstairs in the darkness, my heart pounding so hard I thought he might hear it. The office door was slightly open. I pushed it wider and stepped inside, using my phone's flashlight to see. Everything looked normal at first. Then I noticed David's laptop was still on, the screen just slightly illuminated. He must have closed it quickly when he finished, not bothering to shut it down completely. I opened it carefully. The screen lit up, and I had to shield the light. With my hand, he was still logged into his email. I knew I should not look, knew it was a violation of privacy, but privacy did not matter anymore. Safety mattered. Truth mattered. I scrolled through his recent emails. Most were work-related, boring exchanges about building designs and client meetings. Then I saw an email from 3 weeks ago with no subject line. The sender's name was just a series of numbers. I opened it. The message was brief. She is asking too many questions. We need to handle this carefully. David's response. I know. I am working on it. Just give me a few more weeks. I felt sick. Who were they talking about? Jennifer? Someone else? Me? I kept scrolling and found another email from 2 months ago. This one had an attachment, a scanned document. I opened it. It was a life insurance policy. For me, David had taken out a $2 million life insurance policy on me 6 months ago. I had never been told about it, never signed anything. My hands started shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. I quickly took photos of the emails, of the insurance document, of anything that looked suspicious. Then I carefully closed the laptop and crept back upstairs. David was still asleep, or pretending to be. I climbed back into bed, but there was no way I could sleep now. I lay there in the darkness, processing what I had found. David had not just been unfaithful. He had not just controlled me. He was planning something that involved me being gone, and he had made sure he would profit from it. The next day, Thursday, I called Detective Chen during my lunch break at work. I sent her the photos of the emails and the insurance policy. This is what we needed, she said, her voice tight with urgency. This is evidence of intent. Rebecca, you need to leave today, not tomorrow, today. But if I leave suddenly, he will know something is wrong. He already knows something is wrong. That email about someone asking too many questions, that could be about you? And that insurance policy? That is a massive red flag. People do not take out secret policies on their spouses for good reasons. I was sitting in my car in the parking lot of my office building, watching people walk by on their lunch breaks, living their normal lives. I wanted to be one of them so badly. Okay, I said quietly. I will leave work early today. I will tell them I am not feeling well. I will pack and go straight to Eugene. Good. And Rebecca? Do not go home alone. Is there someone from work who could go with you? Or should I send an officer? I have a colleague, James. He lives nearby. I trust him. I will ask him to come with me. Do that. Pack quickly. Take only what you absolutely need, and get out. I will arrange for someone to meet you in Eugene and take your statement about everything you have found. What about David? Will you arrest him? Not yet. We need more evidence. But we are close. And now that we have proof of his intent regarding you, we can move faster. I hung up and sat in the car, trying to breathe. This was real. This was actually happening. I was fleeing from my own husband, from the man I had loved and trusted for 12 years. I went back inside and found James at his desk. He was a good guy, married, father of 3. We had worked together for 5 years and had always had a friendly, professional relationship. James, can I talk to you for a minute? Privately. We went to an empty conference room. I must have looked terrible because his expression immediately became concerned. Rebecca, what is wrong? I need your help. I need someone to come to my house with me while I pack some things. I am leaving my husband, and I do not feel safe going home alone. He did not ask questions, did not hesitate. Of course. Let me grab my keys. Do we need to go right now? Yes, please. We took separate cars to my house. I was terrified David might have come home. Early by now, but his car was not in the driveway. Still, I asked James to come inside with me while I packed. I moved quickly through the house, grabbing clothes, toiletries, important documents. James waited downstairs, but I felt safer knowing he was there. As I was packing, I heard a noise from David's office. My heart stopped, but it was just James. Rebecca, you need to see this. His voice was strained. I ran downstairs. James was standing in David's office, looking at the computer screen. I must not have closed the laptop completely last night, and it had stayed on. Now the screensaver had timed out, revealing what David had been looking at. It was a map, a satellite view of an area near Mount Hood, a location marked with a red pin, deep in the forest, far from any roads or houses, the kind of place where someone could disappear and never be found. Below the map was an open document, a checklist. The items made my blood freeze. Heavy-duty trash bags, check. Bleach, check. Rope, check. Tarp, check. Cash withdrawal, $5,000, check. Cabin reservation, no paper trail, check. Phone tracking disabled, Rebecca's device. In progress, James turned to look at me, his face pale. Rebecca, we need to call the police right now. I was already dialing Detective Chen. When she answered, I could barely speak. He was planning to take me there and hurt me. The words came out in a whisper. He had everything prepared. He was going to take me to that cabin this weekend. Get out of that house now. Detective Chen's voice was sharp. Both of you. I am sending units to your location and to David's office. We are bringing him in for questioning. James grabbed my packed bag and practically pushed me toward the door. We ran to our cars. As I started the engine, my phone rang. It was David. For a moment, I just stared at the screen, paralyzed. Then I answered, putting it on speaker so James could hear. Hey, honey. David's voice was casual, normal. I just had a thought. Why do not I come home early today? We could have dinner together before you leave for Eugene tomorrow. What do you say? I looked at James. He shook his head firmly and mouthed the word. No, I would love that. I lied, my voice somehow steady, but I am actually still at the office. Big project deadline. I will probably be here late. Oh, a pause. That is too bad. I was really hoping we could spend some time together tonight. Tomorrow, I promise. As soon as I get back from Monica's, we will have all the time in the world. Okay. His voice changed slightly, became softer, almost sad. I love you, Rebecca. Those 3 words, words I had heard 1,000 times, now sounded like a threat. I love you too, I said, and ended the call. James and I drove straight to the police station. Detective Chen met us at the entrance. Behind her, I could see officers moving with purpose, preparing to bring David in. You did the right thing, she said, leading us inside. You are safe now, but I did not feel safe, because somewhere across town, my husband had just realized I was not where I said I would be, and a man who had been planning to hurt me, who had hurt others before, now knew his plan had failed. What would he do next? The police station was cold and smelled of coffee and industrial cleaner. Detective Chen led James and me to a small interview room with gray walls and a table bolted to the floor. She brought us water and asked James to wait outside while she took my statement. I need you to tell me everything again, from the beginning, she said, setting up a recording device. Every detail matters now. I spent the next 2 hours recounting everything. The doctor's appointment, finding the locked box, the photos of Jennifer and the other women, the secret bank account, the insurance policy, the emails, and finally the checklist we had found on David's computer. Detective Chen listened without interrupting, taking notes and occasionally asking for clarification. When I finished, she sat back and looked at me with an expression I could not quite read. Sympathy mixed with something else. Anger. Maybe. "Rebecca, I want you to understand what you just escaped," she said quietly. "That checklist. The location he marked. The supplies he gathered. That was not a vacation plan. That was a plan to make you disappear." My hands started shaking again. I had known it intellectually, but hearing her say it out loud made it real in a new way. "Where is David now?" I asked. "We have units at his office and your home. They should be picking him up any moment." She glanced at her phone. "Actually, they just arrived at his office building. What will happen to him? We will question him about Jennifer Hayes, about the other women, and about his plans regarding you. With the evidence you have, provided, especially that checklist and the life insurance policy, we have enough to hold him. Will he go to jail? That depends on what we find and what he says. But at minimum, we can charge him with attempted harm based on the evidence. If we can link him to Jennifer's disappearance or prove he harmed the other women, the charges will be much more serious." There was a knock on the door. Another detective poked his head in. "Chen, you need to see this." Detective Chen excused herself and left. I sat alone in that interview room, staring at the gray walls, trying to process everything. My entire life had collapsed in less than a week. The man I had married, the man I had trusted with everything, had been planning to end my life, and I had been so blind to it. James had been right to insist on coming with me to the house. If I had gone alone, if David had come home, early though I might not have made it out. Detective Chen returned 15 minutes later. Her expression was grim. "We have a problem." She sat down across from me. David was not at his office. According to his assistant, he left about an hour ago. Said he had to handle a personal emergency. "We sent units to your home, but his car is not there. Rebecca, we do not know where he is." The fear came rushing back, cold and sharp. He knows. He must have figured out I was not at work. "We have issued an alert for his vehicle. Every officer in the city is looking for him. But I need to ask you something important. Are there any places David might go? Places that are significant to him or to both of you?" I tried to think through my panic. Our house, his office, maybe his parents, home in Vancouver, Washington. But his parents had both passed away 3 years ago. What about friends? Detective Chen pressed. Close colleagues? Anyone he might turn to? David did not really have close friends. He had colleagues, business associates, but no one he confided in. At least, no one I knew about. But then again, I had not known about the women, the secret bank account, any of it. "I do not know," I admitted. "I thought I knew him, but clearly I did not." "What about the cabin? The one he wanted to take you to this weekend?" Detective Chen pulled out her phone and showed me the satellite image we had seen on David's computer. "Do you recognize this location?" I studied it. It was heavily forested, with a small structure visible in the clearing. "No, I have never been there. I did not even know he had access to a cabin. We are sending units there now, but it is remote. It will take them at least an hour to reach it." My phone rang. Unknown number. Detective Chen and I looked at each other. "Answer it," she said. "Put it on speaker. We will trace the call." I answered with trembling fingers. "Hello? Rebecca?" David's voice was calm, almost gentle. It was the voice he used when he wanted to comfort me, when he wanted me to trust him. "I know you are with the police right now. David, where are you? That does not matter. What matters is that you have made a terrible mistake. Whatever. They have told you. Whatever you think you found. You have it all wrong." Detective Chen was typing rapidly on her phone, presumably alerting her team to trace the call. "I found the checklist. David, I saw what you were planning." He laughed softly. "That was not what you think. I was planning a surprise for you. A renewal of our vows ceremony. The supplies were for decorations. The location was where I wanted to take you for the ceremony. I wanted it to be private, romantic. You took out a life insurance policy on me without telling me. For our future. For protection. Lots of couples have life insurance. You are looking at everything through a distorted lens because someone has poisoned your mind against me. Jennifer Hayes is missing. David, the police know you were involved with her." There was a pause. "Jennifer was a mistake. I admit that. I was weak. I had a brief relationship with her, and when she became obsessive, I ended it. I do not know where she is now. Maybe she left town. Maybe she could not handle the rejection. But I did not hurt her. He sounded so reasonable, so sincere. For a moment, I almost wanted to believe him. That was the truly terrifying part. Even now, knowing what I knew, part of me still responded to his voice, to the man I had loved for so long. Detective, Chen scribbled on a notepad and held it up. Keep him talking. What about the other women? David, the ones in the photographs, old relationships from before we met. I kept the photos because I am sentimental. That is not a crime. And the secret bank account? The hotel receipts? Another pause. Longer this time? Okay. I have not been perfect. I have made mistakes. But none of that means I would ever hurt you. Rebecca, I love you. Everything I have done has been for us, for our future together. If that is true, then turn yourself in. Talk to the police. Explain everything. I will, he said. But first, I need to see you. I need to look you in the eye and tell you the truth. Meet me somewhere. Just the two of us. Let me explain everything. Then I will turn myself in. I promise. Detective Chen was shaking her head vigorously, mouthing the word no. I cannot do that, David. His voice changed, became harder. You owe me that much. 12 years of marriage, Rebecca. 12 years of building a life together. And you are going to throw it all away based on some paranoid doctor's theories and circumstantial evidence? It is not paranoid when there is a missing woman. When there is proof that you were planning something. I was not planning anything except a beautiful surprise for my wife. But you have ruined it. You have ruined everything. His voice was rising now, the calm mask slipping. Do you know how hard I have worked to give you a good life? The house, the car, the lifestyle. And this is how you repay me. Detective Chen was making urgent gestures. Her team had almost traced the call. David, please just come in and talk to the police. If you have nothing to hide, if everything was innocent, then prove it. He laughed. Again, but this time it sounded bitter. You really do not understand, do you? You think you are the victim here, but you are the one who has destroyed our marriage. You are the one who has chosen to believe lies over your own husband. They were not lies. I saw the evidence with my own eyes. You saw what you wanted to see, what they manipulated you into seeing. But fine, if this is how you want it to end, then so be it. The line went dead. Detective Chen immediately made several phone calls, coordinating with her team. Did you trace it? She asked someone. Where was he? She listened for a moment, then her expression darkened. He was calling from a burner phone. The signal bounced off a tower near your house, but he is probably not there anymore. He is smart enough to keep moving. What do we do now? I asked. We keep looking. And you stay here where you are safe. She looked at me seriously. Rebecca, that conversation you just had, that is not a man who is innocent. That is a man who is angry that his control over you has been broken. The way he tried to manipulate you, to make you doubt yourself, to make you feel guilty. That is classic abusive behavior. I know. And I did not fall for it. But it scares me how much I wanted to. That is normal. You loved him. Part of you probably still does. But love does not excuse what he was planning to do. Over the next few hours, I stayed at the police station while Detective Chen and her team coordinated the search for David. They found his car abandoned in a parking garage downtown. Security footage showed him getting out and walking away, but they lost him after that. They also sent a team to the cabin location from David's computer. What they found there made everything worse. The cabin was exactly as marked on the map. Inside, they found the supplies from David's checklist: heavy-duty plastic, bleach, rope. But they also found something else, buried behind the cabin, in a spot that had been recently disturbed. They found human remains. Detective Chen told me this in private, her voice gentle but firm. They are running tests now to identify the remains, but based on the location and timing, we believe it might be Jennifer Hayes. I felt like I was going to be sick. He was really going to do it. He was going to take me there and hurt me, just like he did to her. Yes, and the fact that he chose that specific location, where he had already hidden evidence of a previous incident, suggests this was not his first time. Rebecca, we are looking into all the women from those photographs now. We need to find out what happened to them. How did I? not see this? How did I live with him for 12 years and not know? Because he is very good at hiding it. Sociopaths like David are experts at creating a facade. They can be charming, loving, attentive when they need to be, but underneath, they are completely different people. As evening approached, I was exhausted but could not relax. Every time my phone rang, I jumped. Every time someone walked past the interview room, I tensed. Up. Monica had been calling, worried about me. Detective Chen finally let me call her back to explain I would not be coming to Eugene as planned, that I needed to stay in Portland for now, and that I would explain everything later. Around 8 in the evening, there was sudden activity in the station. Officers moving quickly, voices raised. Detective Chen came into the room, and I could see from her expression that something had happened. "We found David," she said. "He turned himself in about 10 minutes ago. Just walked into a different police station across town and said he was ready to talk." "Is he okay?" I asked, then immediately hated myself for caring. "He is fine. Calm. Collected. He has requested a lawyer. What happens now? Now we question him. We present him with the evidence, and we see if he is willing to tell the truth, or if he is going to keep lying. Can I see him?" "Absolutely not. And Rebecca, you need to prepare yourself. He is going to try to manipulate the situation. He is going to try to make himself look like the victim. Men like David always do. I spent the night on a couch in a room at the police station they used for witnesses who needed protection. I could not go home. That house was no longer safe, no longer mine. Everything I had built there was contaminated by the truth of who David really was. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that checklist. I saw the satellite image of the cabin. I saw Jennifer Hayes in those photographs, smiling and unaware of what was coming. The next morning, Detective Chen came to tell me that David had been formally charged, attempted harm, based on the evidence of his plan. Additional charges related to Jennifer Hayes would likely follow once the Gipo remains were positively identified. He still maintains his innocence. She said, claims everything was a misunderstanding, but the evidence speaks for itself. What about a trial? That will take time. Months probably. But he is not getting bail. Not with this evidence. He will stay locked up until then. So it is over, I said, but it did not feel over. The legal part is just beginning, but the immediate danger has passed. You are safe now, Rebecca. But I did not feel safe. I felt shattered, because the man I had loved, the man I had built a life with, had been planning to end mine. And somewhere deep inside, in a place I was ashamed to acknowledge, part of me still could not believe it was real. A pause in the story to remind you to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you are listening to this story from. We will post new stories every day. Thank you. Let us continue. 3 months had passed since that terrible week when my entire world collapsed. 3 months since I learned that the man I had married was not who I thought he was. 3 months since I escaped what would have been my final trip. I was sitting in a small apartment in Northeast Portland, a temporary place Detective Chen had helped me find through a program for people escaping dangerous situations. It was nothing like the house David and I had shared. Just 2 rooms, basic furniture, plain white walls. But it was mine, and more importantly, it was safe. My phone rang. It was Detective Chen. I had come to recognize her number immediately over these past months. "Rebecca, I have news. The DNA results came back. The remains we found at the cabin have been positively identified as Jennifer Hayes." I closed my eyes, feeling a wave of sadness wash over me. I had known it was likely, but hearing the confirmation made it real. A woman had lost her life because of my husband. A woman who, like me, had probably trusted him, cared for him, believed his lies. There is more. Detective Chen continued. "We have also located 2 of the other women from the photographs you found. One is alive and living in California. She has agreed to testify about David's behavior during their relationship. The other was found in a similar situation to Jennifer. Her case had been classified as a missing person for 2 years. We are reopening that investigation now." My hands were shaking. How many women did he hurt? "We are still investigating. But based on what we have found so far, we believe there are at least 4 victims over the past decade. Maybe more. 4 women. 4 lives destroyed or ended because of the man I had slept next to for 12 years. The man who had kissed me goodbye every morning. The man who had promised to love me forever. The trial is scheduled for next month, Detective Chen said gently. The prosecutor wants to meet with you next week to prepare your testimony. Are you ready for that? Was I ready? I did not know, but I knew I had to do it. For Jennifer. For the other women. For myself. I will be. There, I said. Over the next few weeks, I met with the prosecutor multiple times. Her name was Amanda Torres, a sharp, compassionate woman in her 40s who specialized in cases involving violence against women. She prepared me for what the trial would be like, what questions I would be asked, how David's defense team would try to discredit me. They are going to try to paint you as paranoid, as someone who misinterpreted innocent actions. She explained, they are going to claim David was a devoted husband who was planning a romantic surprise, and that you overreacted based on the suggestions of a doctor who barely knew your situation. But the evidence shows otherwise. Yes, and that is what we will focus on. The checklist, the insurance policy, the secret accounts, the other women. Most importantly, Jennifer's remains found at the exact location David had marked, on his computer. No amount of spin can explain that away. The day of the trial arrived. I had been dreading it and needing it in equal measure. I needed to face David. I needed to look him in the eye and tell the truth about what he had done. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Dark wood, high ceilings, rows of seats mostly filled with reporters, police officers, and a few people I did not recognize. David's defense team sat at one table. He sat next to them, wearing a suit I recognized from our closet, looking calm and composed. When he saw me enter, our eyes met. For just a moment, I saw something flash across his face. Anger, regret, I could not tell. Then the mask came back, and he looked away. I sat in the witness area with Amanda Torres. The judge entered, and the trial began. The prosecutor presented the evidence methodically. The locked box I had found, the photographs of Jennifer and the other women, the secret bank account with large cash withdrawals, the hotel receipts, the insurance policy David had taken out on me without my knowledge. Then came the most damning evidence. The checklist found on David's computer, the satellite map showing the cabin location, the supplies that had been gathered and hidden there, and finally, the remains of Jennifer Hayes, buried behind that same cabin. David's defense attorney tried to create doubt. He argued that the checklist was taken out of context, that David had legitimate explanations for the supplies, that the connection between David and Jennifer's remains was circumstantial. But then, Amanda Torres called witnesses. First, Dr. Emily Harrison, who testified about her conversations with Jennifer, about Jennifer's fear, about how she had disappeared shortly. After expressing those concerns, then came Sarah Mitchell, one of the women from the photographs who was still alive. She testified about her relationship with David 5 years ago, about how he had started controlling and isolating her, about how she had finally escaped after he had become physically aggressive. She showed the court copies of hospital records from that time, documenting injuries she had sustained. Finally, it was my turn to testify. I walked to the witness stand, raised my right hand, and swore to tell the truth. Amanda Torres asked me to describe my marriage to David. I told them about the gradual changes, how he had slowly isolated me from friends and family, how he had monitored my activities, how he had reacted with anger when I made plans without consulting him. Then she asked me about the week everything changed. I described the doctor's appointment, finding the locked box, discovering the truth about Jennifer. I described finding the checklist and realizing what David had been planning. When can you tell us what you felt when you saw that checklist, Mrs. Sullivan? Amanda asked. I looked directly at David. He was watching me intently, his expression unreadable. I felt terrified. I felt betrayed. And I felt grateful that I had discovered the truth before it was too late. David's defense attorney cross-examined me. He tried to suggest I had been paranoid, that I had misinterpreted innocent actions, that my judgment had been clouded by stress and the influence of Dr. Harrison. But I stayed calm. I answered every question truthfully. And when he tried to imply that David had been planning a romantic surprise, I looked at the jury and said, "No loving husband plans a surprise that includes heavy duty, trash bags, bleach, and rope. No loving husband hides a second life from his wife, and no loving husband takes out a $2 million insurance policy on his wife without her knowledge. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The jury deliberated for 3 days. When they finally returned with their verdict, the courtroom was packed. On the charge of causing the passing of Jennifer Hayes, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of attempted harm against Rebecca Sullivan, we find the defendant guilty. On multiple charges of fraud, we find the defendant guilty. I sat there listening as the judge read each verdict. Guilty, guilty, guilty. David showed no emotion, but I saw his hands clench into fists on the table in front of him. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of release for 25 years. David was led away in handcuffs. As he passed my seat, he stopped for just a moment and looked at me. "This is your fault," he said quietly, so only I could hear. "You destroyed everything." Then he was gone, and I finally felt like I could breathe. After the trial ended, I stood outside the courthouse with Detective Chen and Amanda Torres. Reporters were shouting questions, but I ignored them. I just needed a moment to process what had happened. "How do you feel?" Detective Chen asked. "I do not know," I admitted. "Relieved, I think, but also sad. Sad for Jennifer and the other women. Sad for the life I thought I had." "You did the right thing," Amanda said. "Your testimony helped put away a dangerous man. You potentially saved other women from becoming his victims." Over the following weeks, I started the process of truly rebuilding my life. I filed for divorce. It was uncontested since David was in prison. I sold the house we had shared and used the money to pay off debts and start fresh. Monica helped me find a new apartment, a bright space with large windows overlooking a small park. I painted the walls colors I liked, bought furniture that was mine alone, filled the space with plants and books and things that made me happy. I started therapy with a counselor who specialized in helping survivors of manipulative relationships. She helped me understand that what I had experienced was not normal, that the gradual control and isolation had been deliberate, and most importantly, that none of it was my fault. I also reconnected with friends I had lost touch with during my marriage. My sister came to visit from Seattle, and we spent a weekend talking and crying and beginning to repair our relationship. My parents flew out from Arizona and helped me set up my new apartment. 6 months after the trial, I was sitting in my living room drinking coffee and reading a book when my phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize, but something made me answer. "Hello, Rebecca Sullivan," a woman's voice, young and uncertain. "Yes. Who is this?" "My name is Emma. I saw your story in the news. About your husband. About what he did. I think he might have been involved with my sister 3 years ago. She disappeared and the police never found her. I was wondering if I could talk to you about it. My heart ached for this woman, for the pain in her voice. Of course. When would you like to meet?" We met 2 days later at a coffee shop. Emma was in her 20s, with sad eyes that had seen too much grief. She told me about her sister, Michelle, who had started dating a charming architect 3 years ago. Michelle had slowly changed, becoming more withdrawn, more anxious. Then one day, she simply vanished. I gave Emma Detective Chen's contact information and told her about the investigation into David's other victims. I held her hand while she cried and told her that now, finally, there might be answers. That meeting changed something in me. I realized I could use my experience to help others. I started volunteering at the shelter that Dr. Harrison had told me about, the one for women escaping dangerous situations. I shared my story in support groups, helping other women recognize warning signs they might be missing. One evening, I was asked to speak at a community event about recognizing and escaping from controlling relationships. I was nervous, but I stood in front of that room full of people and told my story. I told them about the gradual changes, about ignoring my instincts, about the moment I chose to save myself. After the event, several women came up to me. Some wanted to share their own stories, others wanted advice. One woman, with tears in her eyes, told me that listening to my story had helped her recognize patterns in her own relationship. She said she was going to leave. That is when I realized my experience, as terrible as it had been, had given me purpose. I could not save Jennifer Hayes or the other women David had hurt. but I could help prevent other women from becoming victims. A year after the trial, I returned to the courtroom for a victim impact statement. David was being sentenced for the additional charges related to the other women whose cases had been solved. I had written what I wanted to say, but when I stood at that podium, I spoke from my heart. David Sullivan stole 12 years of my life. He stole my trust, my sense of safety, my ability to believe in love. He stole the lives of multiple women who deserved so much better, but he did not steal my future. I am still here. I am still fighting, and I am helping other women recognize the warning signs so they can save themselves before it is too late. I looked at David. He was staring straight ahead, refusing to meet my eyes. I do not forgive you, I continued, but I also do not hate you. Hate would give you power over me, and I will never give you that again. You are nothing to me now, just a mistake I learned from, a chapter I have closed. I walked out of that courtroom with my head held high. Today, 2 years after that terrible week when my life fell apart, I am happier than I have been in over a decade. I have a new job at a nonprofit that helps survivors of relationship abuse. I have rebuilt relationships with my family and friends. I have rediscovered hobbies and interests I had abandoned during my marriage. I am also dating again, carefully and slowly. His name is Marcus, and he is patient and kind and respectful. He knows my story, all of it, and he has never once made me feel like I was damaged or broken. He makes me laugh. He respects my boundaries. He celebrates my independence. I do not know if this relationship will last forever, but I know that I am no longer the woman who ignored warning signs, who made excuses for unacceptable behavior, who lost herself trying to please someone else. I am stronger now, wiser, more careful with who I trust. Sometimes I still have nightmares about that week, about finding the checklist, about realizing what David had been planning. But I also have dreams about the future, about the life I am building, about the women I am helping. Dr. Emily Harrison and I have stayed in touch. She told me that speaking up about Jennifer, risking her career to warn me, was the hardest and best decision she ever made. She said she thinks about what would have happened if she had stayed silent. If she had followed protocol and said nothing, I think about that too. Detective Sarah Chen sent me a message last month. They had closed another cold case, another woman whose disappearance was now connected to David. She thanked me for my courage in coming forward, for providing the evidence that broke the case open. But the person I think about most is Jennifer Hayes. I visit her grave sometimes, bringing flowers and talking to her like she is an old friend. I tell her about the women we have helped, about the awareness we have raised, about how her story has saved lives. I am sorry I could not save you, I tell her, but I promise your story will not be forgotten. I promise you will help save others, and I believe that is true, because every woman who hears my story and recognizes the warning signs in her own life, every woman who chooses to leave before it is too late, every woman who saves herself is a testament to Jennifer and all the others who were not as fortunate. My name is Rebecca Sullivan. I am a survivor, and this is my story of escape, justice, and rebuilding. A life worth living. If you are reading this and recognize yourself in my story, if you see patterns that frighten you, if you feel controlled or afraid, please know this. You deserve better. You deserve safety. You deserve love that does not hurt. Trust your instincts. Reach out for help. And know that you have the strength to save yourself. Because I did. And if I can do it, so can you. The end of my marriage was not the end of my story. It was the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where I am the author, where I make the choices, where I define what love means. And that is the greatest victory of all.